All right, we made it to Sunday. That means it's time for another Fast Cars, Fast Money Cup video. Hopefully, this is helpful for you guys. And hopefully, you guys did better on the Truck Series slate and the Xfinity Series slate than I did. I was not expecting that much chaos for either race. But nonetheless, we turn the page and we look at the Cup race today. So, we do have 90 laps. With 90 laps, it's really not that many. So because of that, again, when we get to road courses, the main thing we want to focus on is place differential and finishing position upside. So, um, are Dominator points important? Yeah, they're nice to have, but if I can find six drivers in my line that I feel like have top 10, top 15 upside, also give us some place differential, upside. Those are really the plays I want to focus on today with just how many few laps there are. Really aren't that many chances for, Dominator points to stack up. So how are we going to figure out, what guys to play? Well, I think you can look at the 2025, road course data. You can also look at, historical trends on the road courses as well. We have a good chunk of data now in the next gen era. We've been to Watkins Glen a handful of times now. And we're so close. I know we've been saying this week after week. We're only 6 subscribers away, 6 people. It's almost one hand. It's so close. So we're at 994. If we could get to 1,000, that would be amazing. So let's get to the driver by driver breakdown. So kind of interesting pricing. You only got 2 guys in the the 5-figure range up here, and a pretty big price difference between the two of them. So we got SVG and Kyle Larson. So it really comes down to are you playing SVG or are you not playing SVG? So if you are playing SVG, let's talk about the pros. So the pros are he's the favorite to win. He starts on the front row. Chances of him leading a lot of laps today are very high. He is the best driver rating on the road courses. It's not even close. The only issue is if you play him, he's expensive, so it kind of limits the rest of your lineup in terms of what you're able to build or construct based off of the price that you have left. And B, he offers no place differential upside. And like we saw yesterday with the Xfinity Series race, you never know. Like these teams can run into issues. It's not a guarantee they're going to go out there and lead a lot of laps. They could get a penalty, get turned, wreck out of the race. And we know he's going to have a lot of ownership as well. But if he can have a clean race, he's the odds-on favorite to win. He should be leading laps, contending, leading 40, 50, 60 laps and winning the race is very doable from him today. And that's what you're going to need at a SVG if you're playing him. So if you are not playing SVG, or even if you are playing SVG, like who do you want to pair with him, or who do you want to play instead of him? It comes down to those guys that we talked about where it's like, all right, who can finish in the top 10 and who also maybe gives us some place differential upside. So when we get to Larson, he's interesting. He's really struggled this year on the road courses. However, he has really strong numbers at Watkins Glen, specifically in the next gen era. He does have a win here. He did look like one of the better cars in practice, which is, good. That's feels good to have that. He offers a lot of place differential upside as well. So I like Larson today. When we get to Bell and Byron, these are a little bit more tournament plays. I think a lot of people are going to start with either SVG or Larson. So, what are some different ways we can get different in tournaments today? What's looking at building around guys like Bell and or Byron. I will say Byron did have did have better practice times. He was actually the fastest in the 10 and the 15 lap averages. It's $300 cheaper, starts one spot further back. So between the two of them, I would prefer Byron, but Bell and Byron have both been pretty good on the road courses. It's going to be hard to not play Chase Elliott today. He's been very reliable this year. And while he has not won in the next gen era on the road courses, he has easily been one of the, the top 5 cars in terms of driver rating, performance, finishes, stats. Like, a top 10 finish from him today seems very likely. Another guy that's been a top 10 machine has been Chris Buescher. The only issue with Busher is he starts 12th, so I'd prefer Elliott just over, gives you a little bit more place differential upside, but I really like Elliott and Busher today. And Busher also won this race last year, so that is encouraging. So I think SVG, Larson, and Elliott are your chalky, the guys that are going to project the best. And if you're trying to get different today, I think trying to find a way to get Bell and or Byron in your lineup makes a lot of sense. Reddick's been interesting, kind of like Larson almost. Like he's really struggled this year on road courses, which is not typical out of Reddick, especially, the last handful of years we've seen Reddick just, he was usually the guy that you would play and one of the guys to beat, top 3, top 5 driver on the road courses. For whatever reason, this year, this team just hasn't been bringing the cars for him to really excel. And that's kind of evident with his practice and qualifying time. So he's a medium interest play. I'll probably be under the field in terms of ownership. Not a target play by any means, but if you're building multiple lines, I don't mind getting Reddick. I still think he can move forward. I really do like Ty Gibbs a lot today, though. Kind of in that same category as Bell and Byron, somewhat. Maybe Bell and Byron have more lap leading upside or maybe higher finishing, position potential, but Gibbs has been pretty good. And if you look at his practice times as well, it suggests he's a top 10 guy. You can get him cheaper than a lot of these 9K, Busher, Byron, and Bell plays. So it also gives you some place differential upside. Now, Briscoe's been a qualifying machine. However, starting third, limited place differential upside, if any. And again, it's going to be really hard to get out front and pass SVG in my minds. And I think as some of these place differential options come through, I can see Briscoe kind of sliding back throughout the field. McDowell is interesting. I think he makes a lot of sense for tournaments. He was second in the single lap and fourth in the 5-lap average. So that is encouraging. And if, build some confidence if you are going to play him. He also is sponsored. It's the Go Bowling at the Glen. He has the Go Bowling, wrap on his car. I don't know if you give any credit to that, but maybe that helps him. But it really comes down to hey, this team needs to win and get in. And it's really this and Daytona are really his only two options. And he got a couple of extra laps in the Xfinity Series race, and these cars race completely differently. But track time is never a bad thing, so I don't mind him for tournaments. Maybe you could play Ross in tournaments as well. It's just kind of with Briscoe starting fourth is kind of just a really tough zone. I don't really see too many people on speed, at least, getting out in front of SVG. Maybe strategy, but really just not getting the Chastain for those reasons. AJ Allmendinger, he's tough, man. I mean, if you looked at practice and qualifying, he's just okay. But if you look at how he's done historically at Watkins Glen, specifically in the next gen era, his numbers are actually pretty good here. So I think he can, contend for a top 10, but his price continues to plummet in DraftKings, especially in these road courses. So not really a target play, but I'll still probably be, over the field or maybe at the field in terms of ownership for him. Denny Hamlin starts 22nd. Road course racing in the next gen era, he's just been okay at it. So starts mid-pack. I think he finishes mid-pack. Did not see Ryan Blaney getting the pole. I don't think many people saw him getting the pole, but he did. However, I don't really think he's going to be able to maintain that track position. I think he's going to fall back as the race goes on. I really do like Alex Bowman a lot today. Kind of like McDowell. He's an interesting tournament option. I don't really know how many people are going to play him. And he had, top 10 upside, I would say, based off of his practice times, limited place differential upside, but he gives us that finishing upside that we're looking for. And he's pretty affordable at only $7,800. Kyle Busch, maybe. I mean, he's been so hard to trust starting fifth. Ooh, that is a tough click, especially with how this team has been running as of late. More often than not, this team is running into issues. It seems like that luck is carrying over even in the lower series. He had a mechanical issue in the Truck Series race, which was a bummer. Ryan Preece starts 17th. His practice times will suggest, hey, do not play this guy. However, if you look at the road course data, it suggests that, hey, top 10, top 15 is very doable for him. And that's where he qualified. So again, not necessarily a target play, but if you need someone out of the 7K range, like who else are you going to play besides Priest? The only guy I really have interest in is Bowman. Other than that, like Logano starts around where I think he's going to finish, if not drop back. Hocevar has been another guy, kind of like Kyle Busch, just been really tough to trust. Cindric just doesn't really do that much for us for DFS, starting 13th. Suarez, this is kind of it for him if he wants to make it into the playoffs, kind of like, McDowell. It's here in Daytona, but McDowell had much, much better practice times than Suarez has. He just has kind of been irrelevant. Keselowski starts mid-pack, likely finishes mid-pack, and you could even carry it down to Bubba Wallace. So Bubba Wallace starts 15th in the teens. I don't really see him moving forward that many spots, likely drops back. He's locked into the playoffs now. Like, he more or less doesn't care. So really not getting to the 7K range a lot besides Bowman, maybe Priest for the place differential safety. So if you are, in the 6K, 5K range, and you likely will be, depending on how top heavy you're going, I do like Todd Gilliland. He's $6,700, which is expensive for Todd. However, he does run pretty good on the road courses. And, if you need some confidence or, suggestions that, hey, he'll be able to back it up. He was 8th in the single lap times and was actually 10th in the 5-lap averages. I starts 28th, so it gives you some good place differential upside. If you don't want to play Gilliland or if you need some other guys, I think John Hunter Nemechek and Eric Jones, make a lot of sense. Are their practice times that good? No, but getting a top 25 is very doable for these teams, especially depending on how the wrecks go or strategies or cautions fall. They're relatively safe options. But if you need some guys that are probably similar upside to John Hunter Nemechek and Eric Jones for even cheaper, we can talk about a lot of these guys down in the 5K range. I'm really not getting the Josh Berry or Austin Dillon. Both of them start in the 20s and likely run in the 20s. Gregson has been just hard to play. More often than not, this team is involved with an issue, is a reason for a caution, penalties, you name it. But as always, he starts 36th. So gives you a lot of place differential upside. He's very cheap. He's very affordable. You really just need him to finish the race, and he's almost guaranteed, a top 30 finish if that happens, which isn't great for DFS, but I mean, it's hard for him not to score you points. So I don't mind him. Could make the same argument for Stenhouse. He's just a little bit cheaper. Now, Justin Haley's interesting. Maybe, he has good speed this weekend. I don't know. If you look at his historical trends in 2025, this team has not been good. Qualifying, it was decent, but not nearly what we saw in practice. But if you look at practice, he was first in the single lap and first in the 5-lap average, and he was second in the 10 and 15-lap practice averages, which is pretty good. Especially, you don't see that type of speed out of the punt plays, too often. So a little bit more of a tournament play, I would say, for those reasons, especially with the limited place differential versus like Zane Smith and Ty Dillon. Kind of the same boat as Gregson and Stenhouse, and even John Hunter Nemechek and Eric Jones. So just cheap punt plays. They start deep. Honestly, what I would do is find your core plays, higher on the slate and just build variations of those lines. So, you click on your 5 guys, and then depending on how much salary you have left, you play one of those lines with Gregson. You build the same exact line, and you swap Gregson out for Stenhouse, so on and so forth. That's usually what I do when I get to these punt plays. They're kind of just a toss-up. But if I had to pick one of them, I'm probably going to lean on Cole Custer, at least out of the 5K range. He had better practice times than most of these punt option plays. He's cheaper as well, allows you to pay up for some other drivers. I've seen him run decent on the road courses. Not really getting the Riley Herbst. Basically, I'd rather just play any of the other medium, punt plays over him, just with the extra place differential. Blicky and JJ Yaley, chances of them having a mechanical issue are just too high. Cody Ware has not been very good on the road courses. And then, hey, Catherine Legg, maybe she's dirt cheap, $4,800, almost starts DFL. The speed isn't there this weekend, but it necessarily hasn't been there the other, times she's been in the car either. But if she can just finish the race, like, and depending how crazy this race gets, like top 30 finish is very doable and potentially even a top 25. Like we've seen it before. So I don't mind her. So I think it really comes down to is, are you playing SVG or are you not playing SVG? And regardless if you are or not playing him, who are some guys you can get in your lines that have that top 10, upside ability. So, pretty limited on high interest drivers. There's a lot of medium interest drivers that I have today. So I have not built lines yet, but I'm looking forward to building lines. Hopefully we get a good race. Hopefully this has been helpful. If it has, if you've made it this far in the video, obviously you enjoy our content, or at least we're intrigued by our content. So if you could like, comment, share, retweet this, really helps us, allows us to reach more people. Each week we slowly but surely continue to grow. We're only six subscribers away from 1,000. That's been our goal since day one. If you want access to this, or we also put content out for the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series, spreadsheets only, just because it's really tight turnarounds with videos. But you can follow us on X. It's at Fast Cars FM. Then, hey, you want to help me go to some more races, buy some race shirts, get some die casts. There's a couple of links in the support tab to be able to do that. So that's going to do it. Hopefully you guys have a good Watkins Glen weekend. And as always, we'll catch you next weekend.